It's Brian Preston, the money guy.
Here's the dark side of wealth is it allows you to get caught up in lifestyle creep.
Yeah, I think that this is probably one of the main reasons why millionaires specifically aren't happy.
Yeah. I mean, Bo, you said this. We've said it on a previous show, and you brought me. So make sure we get that quote in there. You can price yourself outside of your happiness.
Yeah, we've done a lot of we've looked at a lot of research that suggests that if you are the least wealthy of all the folks, like if you're the least wealthy house on the street in your neighborhood, there's a high likelihood you're going to be the unhappiest because of that comparison game.
Well, and here's some shock and awe stats, just to kind of put color to what you just shared. 1 in 3 people who trade in a vehicle are underwater in that vehicle.
It's, that stat alone flies in the face of the money guy 23.8.
Yeah, you're buying vehicles you cannot afford. The average American household owed close to $8,400 in credit card debt.
In our opinion, credit card debt is a 4-letter word. It should not exist. It should not be carried over.
Yeah, pay it off. If you can't pay your credit card off month to month, you need to go cold turkey and just not even have credit cards.
Right.
Go lock it up in the freezer in a glass of ice water or something like you hear people, consumer advocates talk about.
Yep.
You can tell them from Atlanta.
Clark
Howard.
Yep.
But and then here's the other thing. 38 million Americans spend more than 30% of their income on housing, and that's up from 16 million in 2001.
Once again, if you just follow some money guy tried and true steps, you want to keep all of your housing costs below 25% of your income. So these people are naturally making life decisions that are putting them in a very difficult financial spot.
So we hear there's all kind of, if you go do some Google research on this, you'll see that there are people who talk about shopper stress, meaning that when they get stressed out, they go to the mall. Mm-hmm. Was it consumer?
Retail therapy, right?
Retail therapy. Thank you. That has such a better sound to it than what I was trying to put.
Consumerism.
Yeah, we didn't talk about it in the show notes. I was just like, but I'm trying to describe. This is a human condition. Is that I think sometimes we think, and we're told this. It's whispered in our ear by the advertisers, where they're like, if you're sad, you can buy yourself out of this. Just go do it. You can just go buy it. But here's the reality of it: the hedonic treadmill. And I remember when I found this concept, I was like, yes, this explains it. This ties into so many other things, the Diderot effect and so forth that we've done shows on. But the hedonic treadmill really describes the fact that when you need to understand that human nature easily adapt. So if you're going through a horrible situation, I'm going to go ahead and tell you the truth. Go ahead and change as many things as possible so that you're only miserable. You grouped all your miserable things all at once.
Together.
Meaning that if you went from a 6-figure job and now you are basically not making anything, don't slowly make changes because you'll just slowly keep yourself miserable. Mm-hmm. Make those changes very quickly. Yeah. But it's the opposite on the upside of things is that we will adapt. So that's why when people come into windfalls, they think, well, I'll just go buy a house and that will be it. No, you typically go then buy a car and then they're going to go buy the lake house and then they're going to go buy, and they'll do all these things all at once. And then they're going to come to the end of it and be like, oh, I did all the things. I got to go bigger to get the same feeling I got. I would rather you space those life events out because that dopamine hit is very short. We adapt very quickly.
We see this all the time. We'll have folks that maybe sell a business or they come into a large windfall of assets. We always tell them, hey, let's slow roll the life expansion. Okay, if you want to improve the house, that's great. Let's do that, but let's not buy the new car next month. Yeah. Let's not take that once-in-a-lifetime vacation. Let's do it slowly so you actually give your brain enough time to enjoy the thrill of that thing that you've just done, that thing
so when you get
the
hit of accomplishment, it's fun each and every step. That's where that helps. That's definitely a great coping mechanism. And also don't get caught up in what's in the I always say in the literature package, the marketing kit, the commercial, the brochure is, gosh, thank God, you can tell I just got back from a trip because this thing is only working. It's like a little foggy, and then I've got you to be the beacon of light. I'm going to call you Rudolph, getting me through the foggy night.
He just gave himself Santa, and I'm Rudolph. Did you hear that? That's
because
what just happened.
It is one of those things because you daydream. I think a lot of people, and it was even worse back in the 80s when you had Robin Leach telling us the lifestyles of the rich and famous, and in the 90s you had MTV Cribs, where people were saying, look, you just need to have this yacht. You need to have this. This is where the magic is going to make you happy. The truth is you go buy the yacht and then you're going to be seasick on it, and then you're going to be seasick that you had to pay all these people to take care of it. Just save yourself a lot of trouble. Don't get caught on the hedonic treadmill, or at least understand how the hedonic treadmill works with human nature.
Yeah, there's a really popular saying, we get caught up buying things that we don't need to impress people that we don't care about anyways.
Yeah.
And I think if you can just recognize that, I don't want a yacht. No matter how much success I have, it's just not something I want to do because I don't want to be stuck out in the middle of the ocean bored. I think if you can have that in your mind, you will set yourself up for success long term.
So let's go through some money guy tips to keep us from messing this part up. Number one, hyper-focus on what you love. What do we mean by that, Bo?
Yeah, learn what creates happiness for you and your family and do more of that thing. There's nothing wrong with if you want a nicer house so you can do more things, or a bigger yard, or a kitchen where you can entertain. If those things bring you happiness and fulfillment, then do it for that purpose. Don't buy the bigger house simply because I just want the bigger house because that's what so-and-so did.
Make sure it's something that you love, because there's a lot of marketers, there's lots of advertising on this is what happiness looks like. But you might find you actually enjoy, and I'm going to go counterculture. If you love getting coffee every day, and that's one of your things, but you're reaching out and goes, maybe it's okay that you have the espresso machine in your house. Maybe it's okay that you're going and seeing the beautiful art that your barista puts on there. I mean, that's okay because it brings you focus. You have to find what truly makes you happy. Don't do what the advertisers tell you. So, that's the thing I think people get caught up in. Buying that brand name is not going to necessarily make you happy.
Exactly right.
Number two, create emotional decision protection. I am so worried about the retail therapy that I think that you have to create essentially guardrails so that you keep yourself on the straight and narrow of driving towards financial independence. So just because you can doesn't mean you should. What do I mean by that?
Yeah, I think it's so interesting, Brian, because I'm going to share a little bit of this is a little personal confession right now. You mentioned two things right there, and these two tie together for me. I do love coffee. I love espresso drinks. And I, right now, am in the process and have been in the process for like the last 10 months of buying an espresso machine for the house. And I just can't pull the trigger. But the reason I can't pull the trigger is because I'm creating this emotional decision protection, making sure this is something I'm actually going to use, actually going to want, actually going to get utility out of, because it's not like the cheapest purchase in the world, but I do think it's going to add to my overall utility. But rather than just seeing in the YouTube video and going out and buying it, I said, you know what? Okay, I'm going to slow down, make sure I understand how this thing works, how will I use it, how will it fit into my daily routine. Because I put those things in, I've actually protected myself now 3 times from buying the wrong espresso machine.
Well, I also think you just said something key there. The research, the due diligence period actually could be part of the fulfillment journey with the purchase and the relationship. I think, and I want you guys to follow me on this. I have a client, they're actually a money guy client, and she's going to listen to this. Super successful, her and her husband, very successful. She's an incredible financial decision maker. Probably could have done this in another life, been her own financial planner. She lets me know that they've decided they want to buy an RV. When I hear somebody that, because I've done shows with mistakes you hope your friends and family make, RVs are on that list because they don't typically work out. But she did this over like I kid you not, a 2 to 3 year period where this was a goal. She hyper researched it. I told her, I said, because after she had gone through the purchasing process, but then pulled out right at the end, I was like, I'm starting to think you're like me. You enjoy more of the research than the actual act of doing it, because it is the journey of it, but it brings it in. So make sure you have those coping skills. But I want to put the guardrails up with another thing with this due diligence period. Guys, if you will set in your head a dollar amount that you just go put a cool off period, you'll probably protect yourself from buying something crazy.
So you mean like if I'm going to spend over $500, I'm not going to do it that day, I'm going to wait.
It's going to be very specialized to every person, but this will keep you from buying a car. I mean, Christmas time, we just got through it, and I'm always amazed. I think it might be General Motors, where they show 2 brand new cars in the driveway, and he's like, I got you one, and I got me one, and they're both like, yeah! I think most spouses, when they see this, they're like, oh my God, I would kill him, or I'd kill her if they did this. But this is what the consumerism of the marketing agencies tell us. But if you will put a cool off period, if you'll put in due diligence research that creates a journey of, really that's where the fulfillment will come from. It will keep you from making those decisions.
I love it.
So and then number 3, get out of the fast lane. Stop the madness of comparing. Go ahead, Bill.
I think human nature naturally causes us to do that. We naturally think about what we have, but we see someone else. And here's the unsettling truth. And again, this is some Brian Preston wisdom that was laid on me a long time ago. There's always going to be someone who has more.
Yeah.
There's always going to be someone who's a little bit further along, a little more achieved, a little more successful, has a little bit more money, has a little more resource. You're just not going to be able to keep up. And we've even talked about this. We have clients that we consider to be wildly successful. I mean, by normal standards, but with the folks that they run in circles around, they see like upper echelon wildly successful. And it's amazing how much we allow that to influence our happiness and where we are just based on looking at others.
Wealth is relative. And there will always, so if you can train that inner voice, that inside inner voice to understand there's always, and tell yourself this, actually whisper this to yourself is, there's always going to be somebody who has more than me. And then I want you to do a step 2 to that. I want you to look at yourself and reground yourself and go, man, I sure am thankful that I have this. I sure am, because if you will take the negative, flip it back around to a blessing you have going on in your life, I'm telling you, it will reground you. Because, Bo, you also had a President Teddy Roosevelt quote that I thought was great.
Yeah, he said, comparison is the thief of joy. And the more I think about it, the more true it is. The more that I compare what I have going on to someone else or it causes me to lose happiness for no reason. And there's just no point in doing that.
Well, and I want to save you because there's a reason I titled this, Get Out of the Fast Lane. I think a lot of guys, I'm getting to be in my we'll say mid, but I'm getting closer to late 40s. And one of the things I've realized, I've seen a lot of people go through midlife crises. And what happens in a midlife crisis is you're told by society, in my 20s, if I conquer this goal, it'll be great. And in my 30s, so in your 20s, it's like, get out of college, get a good job. 30s, make sure that I'm doing everything for the family where I got, the kids, the house, we're doing it all. And then in your 40s, I think there's a lot of people, you're on the interstate of life, that rat race, and you're like, boom, 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 you're moving so quick. And then you start looking around going, what the heck am I doing in the fast lane? Why am I here? And that's where I think the midlife crisis comes in for a lot of people, is they start questioning their why, because they were sold a false bill of goods by the marketing agencies, by all the retail therapy. And that's why you got to make sure you get out of the fast lane, figure out what actually brings you fulfillment and happiness, because it can't be something that an advertiser defines for you.
That's exactly right.